What is happening, everybody, and welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. It's a Friday night, and guess what? Your boy here. There is no Slurp King here. We got Jacob. He's away on a work trip. Mike is traveling today, so we have nobody to produce, which means what? I'm producing the show. I'm hosting it, and of course, Eric is going to help me out here as well. So gonna have to lean on Eric a little bit here while I'm clicking on stuff, moving things around, but shouldn't be too much of a big deal. I've run sims for DraftKings, ran sims for FanDuel. I've got the single lineup sim pulled up here as well, so we could plug in some lineups for you guys when we're in between the pitchers and the hitters and whatnot. And if you guys have any questions for us at all, hit me up in the Discord channel. I've got that open here as well. If you got super chats or anything from the YouTube chat, I've got everything open. I've got a billion screens in front of me. I'm all prepped. I'm all ready to go. The only thing I'm going to ask for you guys, though, just simply like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are running out of time in the baseball season. There is, let's see, final day of the regular season is the final day of the month, is it not, Eric?
Correct. Sunday. It's usually Sunday when they have everybody play at the same time. And those are always like 15 game insane slates, or it'll be 14 games and then they'll do one night game. I think that might be the way that it's constructed this year. It's changed frequently, just as far as like sometimes they'll do a morning wave where it's 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You know, everybody will play there, and then there'll be like a 4 o'clock wave. But I think it's just 14 games this year at one time, followed by the one Sunday night baseball game that whatever the biggest implications are, they usually go to that one.
Yes, we've got that's September 29th, the final Sunday with regular season game. So yeah, we've only got, it's like 10-ish slates left or something like that. I didn't look to see if there's any days off in between. Maybe there's like travel or something weird for the final day of the season leading up to it. So running out of MLB regular season slates to play, but we've got the playoffs coming up. And of course, that's going to be all supported in our tools. And NFL, that's also something ongoing, as you guys know. And then we've got basketball starting in just a month. You want to sign up for any of the packages we have here at Stochastic. Link is down below in the YouTube description box. Eric, any weather concerns, at least in the U.S. for you today? I know that over in Scotland, there's some potential weather issues, but how about in baseball stadiums?
How about in baseball stadiums? Well, it felt good to have bad weather here because we've had only for a week that I've been here, phenomenal weather. So I'll be leaving Monday, and yeah, it'll be a bummer to leave now that everything is all squared away, but looks pretty good on the weather front. I mean, this kind of has been a common theme since I've been here. I don't know why. I think they're just trying to make things somewhat easier on me. The Cubs game has some interesting stuff as far as like good weather and then also a little bit of rain surrounding it. But otherwise, I think we're in pretty good shape, and that Cubs game isn't even on the main slate, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we've gone like a month without any real weather concerns, so why start now with just a week or so left in the regular season? But let's start by talking about the pitchers here, which, as you guys could see, I ran the sims, starting with DraftKings. We'll talk about the pitchers, then we'll scroll over to FanDuel after this, and pretty flat for me at pitching. It's going to be a little bit of a spoiler with the exposures on the screen here. There's not like a big reveal in terms of what I'm, over underweight to the field, so people can just look at it right over here. But Eric, let's talk about these pitchers where it's pretty flat-ish on the high end. Garrett Cole is 24% owned. Joe Musgrove is 27% owned. And then you've got Zach Allen, 12% owned. Corbin Burns, 12% owned. George Kirby's 8% owned. Garrett Cole pitching on the road against Oakland, so he's going to be pitching in a strikeout-friendly matchup, also in a pitcher-friendly park. And you get Joe Musgrove pitching at home in the dream matchup against the Chicago White Sox. So if you're paying up for one of these pitchers today, which direction are you going in?
It is probably going to be going towards on the top end because, I mean, Corbin Burns, Zach Allen, they're pretty comparable, but like Joe Musgrove, Garrett Cole pulling all of the ownership here at the moment. I just look at the implied totals and the fact that it's the White Sox. I don't see how it isn't Joe Musgrove at the end of the day. I haven't been crazy high on Joe Musgrove, but that was until he's facing a team with a 75 WRC plus against right-handed pitching on the season, 24% K rate. It's the best spot on the board here. I'm looking at my Sims results as well. He's my highest owned pitcher, and I'm just fine with that.
Yeah, so I don't have any pitcher showing up in north of 30% of my lineups, but if I'm paying up for one of these guys, the guys you'll see here, Joe Musgrove is the one landing in 25% of my lineups, getting more of him than any of these other pay-up pitchers, and it's because of the matchup. If you look at Joe Musgrove's numbers this year, he's dealt with elbow issues. He's only made 17 starts, only thrown 87 innings, so it's a small sample size, but the results haven't been as good as you've come to expect from Joe Musgrove in the past. This is the worst season Musgrove has had really since he became a full-time starter. Actually, looking through his numbers, 4.23 ERA, 4.75 expected ERA. The one positive, at least, it's not like his velocity is tanked with the elbow injury. I actually think more than anything, Eric, what you can say for the downtick in strikeouts for Musgrove and the inconsistent performances, I think it's probably a lack of reps than it is just the health itself, because it's not like we have this tank in velocity or anything like that. Considering how good the matchup is, he just kind of becomes the guy by default that I want to be getting to. And then on top of this as well, I think you had pointed this out on a show, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 Musgrove starts ago. He's pitching better now than he was earlier in the season as well. If you look at him post All-Star break, his strikeout rate has gone from 20.6% in the first half of the season to 28.4% in the second half of the season. His FIP before the All-Star break was 5.36. In the second half, it's 2.78. So I think him being able to get a little bit more consistency in terms of the starts and not having to have the injured list trips, it's helped him to a pretty large extent. Now he's also got the matchup against the White Sox. Play Joe Musgrove in cash. And then for GPPs, I think he's the best pay-up option we have here as well. As you guys could see here on screen, though, I am not getting close to the field on Garrett Cole. So I'm curious what you make of Cole, Eric, as the second most popular pay-up option.
Yeah, I kind of purposely omitted him. I don't like him as much as I like getting to Zach Gallen at less than half the ownership up against Milwaukee. Sure, Milwaukee's the more potent offense. Oakland, not as ideal. I know that we had that crazy streak of it was about a month and a half from July till August, but obviously they're bringing up guys. They're trying and experimenting things out, getting ready for next year. And Brent Rooker continues to be an absolute god. Lawrence Butler's been good. They do have Blade and Brown and a lot of the normal guys that are in this lineup, but you get Soderstrom back in there. Shea Langoliers has been crazy at times. I still think Oakland is probably a team that you want to get to more than you want to get to Garrett Cole relative to what their ownership is. So while at the same time, I understand why the field is getting to him in terms of ownership, give me Gallen against Milwaukee, where sure, they're going to pound you from time to time against right-handed pitching. They've had right around a 105, 110 WRC plus all season, falling in at 106 now. But I always point to the strikeout rate against righties on the year, right around a 24% number. And it is probably a little bit of an illusion as far as I think they are a little bit overrated because over the course of the last however many months, we haven't had Christian Yelich there. I think just without Yelich there, who is somebody who doesn't strike out a lot relative to the average major leaguer, and then can obviously get it done against right-handed pitching, gets it all right against lefties here as well. We're going to see some higher K rates with guys like Jake Bauers, Rhys Hoskins coming down to the end of the season, Gary Sanchez, Willie Thomas higher in the order. I always like trying to attack Milwaukee at the same time that I know they can bludgeon you.
I just don't like any of the other pay-up options all that much. Like Cole's the one I have the second most of in this price range, but still I'm way underweight to the field on him. 10% of my lineups relative to the 25% projected ownership. I'm pretty even with Gallen in 8% of my lineups relative to that 11% projected ownership. It's just the Cole one that's hard for me to get to. He's really just not pitched well this year. And there haven't been too many promising signs either. And it's actually a regression that started last year. If you look at his numbers, I didn't put too much thought into it last season just because overall he was decent, but maybe we should have been more alarmed by that drop in strikeout rate, Eric, because Cole for a very long time has been a guy who's maintained a strikeout rate of 33 to 35%. It went down to 27% last year, but everything else still looked pretty good. And now you got this year, it's taken another little bit of a step back down to 25%. He had the extended stint on the injured list, and now you've got him with a 3.97 ERA, a 3.9 expected ERA. I think Cole is it's always hard to say what the word washed means. Is it just somebody who's terrible now? Is it somebody who's past prime? But I mean, at 33 years old, drop in velocity, injury issues this year, strikeout rate down. He's just not a number one starting pitcher in 2024. He's like a number two, number three starter, but he often draws ownership and is still priced like a top-end starter. So if I'm looking for leverage on the slate, I prefer stacking, which you had said as well. I think stacking Oakland makes sense from a contrarian sense, and I just don't like Cole nearly as much as the field. Any other talking points for you amongst the payout pitchers?
Yeah, Corbin Burns against Detroit, Detroit hasn't been nearly as good of a lineup. It's a ballpark upgrade for them as well. They get Parker Meadows, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, a lot of lefties that are very serviceable at the top of that lineup. That Kerry Carpenter's up to a 564 expected slugging on the season. I mean, this guy has been flat out good. Parker Meadows has the speed. He does strike out quite a bit. The hard hit isn't as good, but you get in a ballpark that plays up for lefty power. 17, 18 degree launch angle across the board for him, depending on which month you look at. 17.7 degree launch angle on the season. I find them to be kind of a pesky matchup coming down to the end of the year. And you look at some of the weather across the entire slate. Like, we obviously don't have any rain, but there's no wind blowing in. We've seen wind blowing in slightly in Baltimore in a couple of these spots. It's blowing out towards the left field boxes. I'm not obviously worried about like a lot of righty power with the left field boxes, because it's, you know, a ballpark that plays deep for that side of the handedness. But Baltimore, yeah, it's still going to be a ballpark where Detroit doesn't look as good with Corbin Burnes on the mound.
So let's talk about the next range of pitchers. We got the 8K range, and yeah, a couple guys that I'm getting exposure to here with modest ownership, Charlie Morton as well as Christopher Sanchez. I'll start by talking about Morton, who I'm surprised is not more popular.
Same.
I know that Charlie Morton at 40 years old has also regressed a little bit this year. Strikeout's not quite the same, but he's been a slightly above league average pitcher this year, and he's pitching against the Miami Marlins. It is such a good matchup that Charlie Morton is drawing today. We almost always see pitchers being super popular against Miami. I'm surprised that he's only getting ownership in the mid-teens here, Eric. It would be a different scenario for me if we're looking at Morton on another one of these slates where he's like 35 to 40% owned. But it definitely stood out to me that he's projected for this modest ownership, $8,500, reasonable price point, on the road in Miami. So he's also going to be pitching in a pitcher-friendly park. Am I missing something, or does it make sense to be overweight to Charlie Morton?
He's my second highest owned pitcher. So I've got Joe Musgrove in 42% of lineups. I have him in 38% of lineups. Charlie Morton is a smash in this spot. You look at the entire slate, he's fifth in terms of everybody pitching today, and in terms of strikeout rate. And that is Garrett Crochet, who's going to be limited. And we've seen those strikeout rates follow. Like, what his K prop is at 3.5 today in my sheet. It's just insane. David Festa, Garrett Cole, Jacob deGrom, who just showed up, and Charlie Morton. This is a guy that is wildly underowned here, has some interesting stuff overall because of 4.35 FIP, 4.41 expected ERA. Not exactly what you're looking for, but you said it. It is an unbelievable ballpark. It is an unbelievably good matchup. I don't see what is going on either.
Is there anything else that you're really liking in this 8K price range?
I mean, based on the way you said that, I'm assuming we're both going to say no. Outside of, I like Jacob deGrom just in terms of like, he can be that guy who goes out and mows down everybody. Now, I don't think we're going to see him get beyond like 75 pitches, but at the height of his powers, I mean, Jacob deGrom was a guy who was striking out more people than we had ever seen in Major League history, basically from a starting pitcher. We had seen him do some insane things, and I don't know Texas's plan with him, considering I didn't think we were going to see him at all this year. I know that he had started to work back, but they're basically just saying, hey, what do we have with Jacob deGrom now, trying to make roster decisions coming into next year? Texas is way, way out of it. They won a World Series last year without him, but you get a Jacob deGrom back where he can throw 90, 100 pitches at the beginning of next year. You're going to be one of the better odds-on favorites in terms of the American League if you can add another starting pitcher to the mix. And you know, you find two aces and you're set to go as an organization in a lot of ways, especially the way the playoffs are constructed these days with the wild card and such. But Jacob deGrom, 61 pitches in his first outing on the 13th. They gave him a full 6 days of rest. I'm assuming we see north of 70 pitches here. And if he strikes out, 12, 13K per nine, if we're going to see him be around a 35, 40% strikeout arm, I think you can have a couple of lineups with him, but I don't know how you prioritize him other than just letting the sim do its thing and having him show up in a couple of lineups. I think all of my intrigue shows up in the 7K range. But the last guy I'll bring up, David Festa against Boston. It's a terrible matchup. We've seen his changeup, though, play pretty effective at the big league level. And if he misses some bats here and there, we could see some strikeout upside. Do you have any Festa whatsoever? Because he's really the only other guy I'm interested in.
Yeah, so I've got some, mostly because of ownership. You guys see here, I mean, Festa projected to be low owned. I've got him in 15% of lineups. Christopher Sanchez projected to be low owned. I've got him in 19% of lineups. And it's just guys with some strikeout upside. In the case of Christopher Sanchez, actually like legitimately good pitcher. He's got a 3.23 ERA, 3.53 expected ERA this year. So he individually doesn't have strikeout upside, but he's just like a good pitcher who isn't popular and also isn't expensive. And you got David Festa, who is like the inverse. He's not a good pitcher, but he does generate strikeouts. So there's different reasons to like each of these guys. If I'm just picking one based on like who I feel is more upside, I'm going to say David Festa because of the higher strikeout rate, also only projected for 8% ownership. Talking on Jacob deGrom, the issue I have with him is, number one, did you look at his, and I know he still throws the ball, super hard, but his velocity, at least relative to what it was not terrific in his first start back. He also only threw 3 2/3 innings. He also didn't really make that many rehab appearances. We saw him make 2 starts in AA. He made 2 starts in AAA. So considering we've now seen him make 5 starts, the Rangers are completely out of playoff contention, and he's coming off his second Tommy John surgery and a long list of injuries. It's just hard for me to think that they want to stretch him out at all. I think he's probably going to pitch like 4 or 5 innings. And on a slate of this size, it's just kind of hard for me to justify it. The Sims gave me a couple lineups of Jacob deGrom, but nothing like crazy. Well, more than a couple, 9%, but still underweight to the field to him. Nothing all that significant. And yeah, if anything, I'd be more inclined to give him a negative ROI boost to take him out of some of those lineups.
Yeah, I got him in 12%. So again, he's the only other guy that I was really pulling nominal ownership. I thought about just clicking David Festa up, Jacob deGrom down. I think that's probably a decent way to do it, but I don't want to necessarily double count because Jacob deGrom's ownership is at 14%, and that is relative to what we've seen and the pitch count concerns. I think for guys like Jacob deGrom, the switch eventually flips. Obviously, I think he's working on stuff. There's no reason that he's going out there to try to like win games for Texas, that he's trying to, they're basically just trying to give him the leash to see where is he as he goes into the offseason and let Texas make good roster construction decisions because he's locked up there. And deGrom at 8,100 here, 14% ownership. I think that's probably appropriate, but he's still showing up in lineups because there could be that switch flipping where he gets to 72 pitches, but runs into 8, 9, 10 strikeouts. That's kind of like he has a longer leash than a Garrett Crochet, who's down at 7,400. Obviously, there's 0 ownership coming on him because of how many times we've seen that pitch count go way down. But and it's San Diego. But deGrom at 8,100, definitely somebody that I think is at least interesting. And David Festa, yeah, I think I'm inclined to give him a boost now.
Yeah, and I know, so like James Sarcone in chat said if a 99 is a dip in velocity, so not 99, his average fastball velocity was 90, and this is where it kind of seems silly because average fastball velocity was 97.2 miles per hour for being exact, according to the data on Baseball
1.5 down.
But that's at least relative to his previous years. It's a pretty significant dip because in 2023, it was 98.7. In 2022, it was 98.9. In 2021, it was 99.2. So it's definitely a slow decrease over the last few years we've seen Jacob deGrom. And we're talking about a pitcher who might only be throwing 65 to 70 pitches. And when you're trying to get the maximum amount of ceiling out of him, yeah, if he's like 10% worse as a pitcher and he's going to be this capped, it's just hard for me to really think there's a realistic upside there.
Yeah, we could probably go to one more thing and we can move on. The slider, he only had 1 strikeout put away on the slider. He had 2 on the 4-seamer, despite just a 15.4% whip percentage. There's room for it to get better.
Got a super chat here from Chris Williams, and Chris is asking us. He says, great show as always, fellas. He says, bring yourself some good karma, hit the like button. And then he says, for the DK night slate, how do we rank the pitchers? Musgrove, Cole, and then Justin W in that order. And he says bats, Dodgers, Yankees, Padres. Yeah, so as far as pitchers go, let me look at the night slate. So we've got Justin Robleski is pitching against the Rockies.
He's out now. He just got scratched is what I was just told.
Oh,
Chris Williams.
Let's see.
Yep.
Did he get scratched, or is there just an opener now?
I will tell you, Brazier is starting. Brazier, Colonel Brazier.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, is he just the opener and then Robleski's coming in after him?
Yeah, I don't want to play Robleski if he's going to be coming in as a relief pitcher because you never know what the Dodgers are going to do.
Yeah. So for the night slate, it's very clearly Joe Musgrove 1 and Garrett Cole 2. I mean, if you want a third pitcher, I guess just based on talent, I'll give you Garrett Crochet because he's $7,400. But you've got a reliever. You've got JT Ginn pitching against. Here's how shitty the pitching is for the night slate. JT Ginn pitching against the Yankees is projected to be the third most popular pitcher now.
Not great, Bob.
So I'll go Musgrove 1, Cole 2, and I guess Garrett Crochet 3, just because you're getting the talent there. Not that he's going to work all that deep into the game, but your other options are a popular JT Ginn against the Yankees, Kyle Freeland against the Dodgers. Give me Crochet is also the lowest owned starting pitcher on the night slate, so I'll go Crochet over Ginn or Freeland in that order. Same for you, or is there anything else you would change about that?
Garrett Crochet is a 3.5K prop today. I probably
think
can't.
I still prefer him to JT Ginn and Kyle Freeland, though.
It's true. I mean, you're basically just saying one of those two are going to suck and you stack against them. So, yeah, you're probably going to be fine doing it that way.
It's rough options. It's rough options there. And then for the bats, Chris is asking us Dodgers, Yankees, then Padres. So I actually like the Yankees the most for the night slate, particularly if JT. It looks like JT Ginn's going to be the third most popular starting pitcher. Mm-hmm. So I guess there's some leverage to be had there. Most of the field is just going to play Musgrove and Cole at pitcher. But if they are going cheaper, it looks like Ginn is going to be the guy. So I would go Yankees 1, Dodgers 2, Padres 3.
Dodgers 1, Padres 2, Yankees 3. Yeah, I don't know what order you said. That's mine.
All right. And then, yeah, Chris had a follow-up there where he said, never mind on the Dodgers pitcher. He was just scratched. Yeah, it happens, especially this time of the year. I think there's probably a good chance that Robleski still ends up coming in, but it's just a guess. He could easily not pitch at all.
Yeah, I have weird feelings about, I mean, obviously we just saw Ohtani in that lineup. Do you think there's a potential he has like one at bat in this game and they pull him?
Do we have the Dodgers lineup yet?
He's leading off, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's off the table.
5%.
But I think if they're that concerned about his workload, I think they would just not play him at all. I honestly thought he wouldn't be in the lineup today after he had just the most insane game possible yesterday.
Yeah, I wrote a long thing, a diatribe, if you will, because I bet 365 here in Scotland, and I was just staring at Colorado plus 1.5 at plus money the entire time. And I'm like, there's like a 10% chance that Ohtani doesn't play, or like, I think it is actually live. I'm going to stick with what I said before. I said 10% before, maybe a little bit lower now, but I'll still just say 10% chance that Ohtani gets a standing ovation, has one at bat, tries to hit a bomb, and then gets pulled. I thought that was like a legit live thing to have happen in this game.
Could be. I don't think it's necessarily the most likely scenario, but it could happen. Folk Matt wants to know weather in Boston.
Looks fine.
Yeah, a chance of rain, but let's see. I'll pull it up here.
A cold game. I mean, that was the one thing that when we moved to David Festa again here, wind's blowing in. It's 62. It's drizzling. Like, I thought David Festa was like a legitimately decent play, and I just wasn't getting him in the Sims. So I don't know what to make of it. As I said, I'm inclined to give him the boost up and give DeGrom the boost down and just kind of like get to around 12, 14% David Festa and get to like 4 or 5% Jacob DeGrom and just flip-flop them.
So there is some rain expected in Boston tonight, but not until either the later stages of the game or until after the game ends. It looks like the rain is expected to start right around 10 p.m., which the game would probably be over by then. So nothing that should be impacting your lineups in any kind of real significant way. Let's get back to talking about the pitchers on the main slate. We've went through the 8K range. Let's talk about the 7K range, where there's a couple of guys that are standing out to me for different reasons. First and foremost here, I think Jacob DeGrom is the best cheap pitching option on the entire slate. $7,800 at home against. You
mean Justin Verlander? Justin Verlander, not Jacob DeGrom.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
You're okay.
Yeah,
you're
Justin
okay.
Verlander. Yep. So Justin Verlander, $7,800 pitching at home against the Los Angeles Angels. And yeah, if you just look at DeGrom's numbers this year, they're certainly not Jacob DeGrom standards, but a lot of bad luck here as well. So he's somebody, he's got a 5.2 ERA, but a 4.01 expected ERA. He's made 15 starts. He's 41 years old. Like, I mean, the father time is catching up to Justin Verlander, but he is just underpriced for this matchup. Like $7,800 against the Angels, a little bit of an overreaction in my opinion here. So Verlander is the pitcher I get the most exposure to. It's still nothing insane. I have him in 27% of lineups, but I know a question we always get asked is, what's the cash game combination today? And the cash combination I like is Verlander paired with Joe Musgrove, Eric.
I agree. I will say there are two concerning things. First off, Justin Verlander's metrics, 5.20 ERA, 1.37 whip, all of the things you brought up where the swinging strike rate is down. Everything is down across the board in terms of strikeouts. But the other thing is this is his second straight start against the Angels. It's one of those things where, you know, you run the data and it's not going to necessarily care about that, but there's definitely something to it. I mean, Fangraphs has had articles about that for years where you can go through and read, oh, does it really affect a starter facing him the second time? It definitely is more correlated with like going your third time through a rotation that day than what it is like you're correlated towards the last start. But it at least doesn't make me feel great about it. I'm underweight to his current ownership. I think in my 40 lineups, I'm probably going to continue to be underweight, but there's no doubt that Justin Verlander, if you're playing cash, you're playing him, you're playing Joe Musgrove, and you're moving on.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a case to be made for Garrett Cole as well, just because he's so popular. But I personally, for this slate, it's not like there's a massive ownership gap between the two of them, and I just like Verlander more than Cole. And if you look at the underlying numbers for Verlander, they're pretty similar to Garrett Cole's, but Verlander's pitching at home. He's also $1,200 cheaper, so I'll side with the Verlander end of that. And not purposely, I'm just saying Verlander more and more times so I can make it clear. Verlander. Not saying DeGrom. I got his name stuck in my head before. Verlander. We got some questions in Discord, and then we'll get back talking about the rest of the pitching here. We have, hey, I'm Drew 95 wants to know cash game hitters for DK. So he wants to know what to look at for cash games as far as the offenses go. We've already talked about some of the pitchers to look at. So for cash games on FanDuel, I think you want to be focused around the Atlanta Braves bats going up against Violante Belozo.
Good job. Bozo's grand prize game.
Yeah, nobody here could confirm or deny if I pronounce that correctly. And then if you're looking to save some salary with your bats, the Kansas City Royals going up against Mason Black. Yeah. Those are the two teams who understandably are the most popular on the slate. I think they make the most sense from a cash game perspective. So load up on them and you play Verlander and you play Joe Musgrove, a pitcher. And I think your cash game lineup comes together. And then he also wants to know, does Ohtani make the lineup? And yes, he is in the lineup. And then he says, maybe he does half as well as he did yesterday. Unlikely that he does half as well as he did yesterday, but that was a pretty wild outing that he had.
81 seems good.
Most ever. I was looking through StatMuse and trying to figure out what is the most fantasy points anybody has ever scored potentially on DraftKings. And it was something also that came up because somebody had asked a question about it on the football show Lofty and I were doing last night. So I decided I looked through the stat and like I can't confirm or deny if this is accurate because I'm not like double checking all the box scores from baseball games from the 1920s. There was one pitcher who would have come really close to Ohtani, it was like 79 fantasy points in 1920, which I was bringing up if there's anybody who ever outscored Ohtani in MLB, if you pulled up like all of the ever starts that somebody made, it would have been a pitcher from like the 20s where pitchers would throw like 20 innings or something like that. So there was an extra inning game where a starting pitcher threw 17 innings and he ended up scoring what would have been 79 fantasy points. So that was the only one close to Ohtani and that like doesn't even count. It's not real. So will Ohtani have half as many fantasy points as he did yesterday? I doubt even as a quarter. Doubt even does that.
10 RBIs is just dumb. 2 stolen bases with 2 homers is just dumb. Dumb.
Wasn't it 3 homers?
Oh yeah, it was 3.
It was a crazy game. Crazy game. Then Einstein wants to know any interest in Kyle Gibson or George Kirby. George Kirby is a no for me just because he's expensive and there's limited strikeout upside. Kyle Gibson, yes, I do think that Kyle Gibson makes sense for this slate. And there aren't that many crazy contrarian pitchers I like, but I'm getting Kyle Gibson in north of 20% of my lineups, just 5% ownership. Gibson this year has been pretty middling. Strikeout rate has been higher this year than previous years. 21.3% is actually the highest he's had since 2019, believe it or not, back when he was with your Minnesota Twins, Eric, another Minnesota Twins pitcher who I think you were not fond of. But Kyle Gibson, do you like him as a contrarian option?
Not like, I have him. He's 5% owned. Mm-hmm. I'm a little worried he gets steamed up because what else are you playing in this range? Like underneath Verlander, he's going to be the most popular pitcher. And I think we might be a little bit low on him as a result of it. You're trying to get up to offenses. You can play Verlander, Gibson, and get a lot. I don't think we're going to see anybody else pull higher than 5%. So I think Kyle Gibson gets some artificial ownership.
I look at the Guardians lineup, and I know they've been really good for the entire year. Steven Kwan, he's on the injured list, definitely waters it down a little bit. This is a team that is like wildly overperformed this year. If you look at the name value of these players, like you look at it's like, how is this one of the best teams in baseball? From top to bottom, you got Martinez, Manzardo is batting second now. You've got obviously Jose Ramirez, really good.
Manzardo's good.
Yeah, Naylor's batting in the cleanup spot. Then you got Thomas, Jimenez, Brennan, Bo Taylor, and then Schienemann at the bottom of the lineup. I'm not going to say it's a terrible lineup or anything like that. I just think it's overperformed, and it's not as difficult of a matchup as it would look like you were just looking at like WRC plus of the Guardians against right-hand pitching for the year. So Kyle Gibson, it's solely because he's 5% owned. He does land into lineups because I think he's under-owned at that low of a price and ownership.
Agreed. But I do think we see him get steamed up a little bit.
Could be. We shall see.
I hope he's unowned because like I've never wanted to play Kyle Gibson in my life on purpose. But here we are on a slate where he could walk into a couple. It's 84. It's decent enough out in St. Louis, but Kyle Gibson, he's just there and he's cheap.
Any other pitchers you like in the 7K range outside of Verlander or Kyle Gibson?
I don't have anybody else really. In 40 lineups, I don't have anybody. Oh, I had one share of Tyler Anderson in my first run. That's going to go away.
Yeah, I mean, you guys could see right here on the screen. I don't have anything outside of these two guys. And then even if you're looking for cheap, I mean, the field's on the same page as well. You've got of all the pitchers priced below David Festa, you got Verlander 24% owned, Gibson at 5%, and everybody else is 1 or 2% owned. The field isn't rostering any of these other players, and I don't really see a reason to either. You know, Garrett Crochet, when we got that question before from Chris Williams, keep in mind that was just related to the night slate where we're trying to figure out who the third best pitcher was, and the options were absolutely terrible. I don't want to play him on a full, like he's only going to throw 2 or 3 innings or something like that today. So I don't like anybody that's cheaper than Kyle Gibson.
Nor do I at all.
Yeah, I don't really have any meaningful exposure coming in here. So anything else you want to add about these pitchers, Eric? If not, we'll look at FanDuel.
Let's jump to FanDuel.
All right, so moving on over to the FanDuel side of things, I'll go ahead and favorite top lineups over here. So for FanDuel, if we go ahead and look at the pitchers, and well, I had a bunch of exposure to Robleski in this run, so forget about that. Actually, I'll do an ROI boost. I'll just take him out right now and see what that changes my exposures to. Let's give him like a crazy negative ROI boost so that comes out of everything. All right, so had exposure to Robleski. That is going away right now. And now if we look at the pitching exposures that I get now, once again, Kyle Gibson showing up in some lineups. He's also only 5% projected owned on FanDuel at $8,300. I really like getting to Justin Verlander at $7,900. If I was building one lineup on FanDuel to enter right now, I would have Verlander as the starting pitcher at $7,900, Eric.
I would too. I'm a little bit surprised to see this is the way that it turned out. But yeah, Justin Verlander, he'd be my one pitcher there too, which is obviously different than the DK side.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. So as far as the pay-up options go on FanDuel, not too much ownership going there. Actually, Justin Verlander is the only pitcher that is double-digit ownership on all of FanDuel. He's going to be 23.6% owned. Also, not all that crazy considering $7,900 is like free for FanDuel purposes. That pitcher. The other options here, Joe Musgrove is 8% owned. Zach Gallen's actually 7% owned. Garrett Cole, he's 10,400, so he's 5% owned. Corbin Burns at 10,200, he's 4% owned. Do you like any of the pay up options, Eric? If you're going to pay up, if you were building a lineup where you had to pay up for a pitcher, which direction would you be going in for that?
Musgrove. I mean, it'd just be Musgrove. I'd eat it. I don't really care. I think Verlander relative to ownership, but yeah, it would have to still be Musgrove because, I mean, it's the White Sox in San Diego, and I just don't see how going to another lineup beyond one where I would start with Verlander, I would go to anybody but Musgrove.
Yeah, if I'm paying up, and Musgrove, like, relative to other FanDuel pitcher prices, usually like a guy who, and even though Musgrove hasn't had the best season, a matchup against the White Sox, I would just expect that pitcher to be like 11,000 or something like that. So being able to get Joe Musgrove, is your back tight from your golfing over there?
Yeah, it was. It just kind of got. So I've got this little beautiful fireplace that's just sitting here ever so eloquently next to me, but it's trying to heat up my back because it is freaking cold here. Yeah, I go from being 90, 95. It was 106 every day in LA for like 2 weeks, and now it's 50 out. It was like 40 when I walked in the door. So yeah, it's not ideal.
Gotcha. So anyway, if I'm paying up for a pitcher on FanDuel, Joe Musgrove at $9,900, I'm overweight to the field, got about double what the field has on him, only 7% owned there. So Joe Musgrove, to me, pretty clearly the best overall spend up option. I do think there's a pretty good chance he ends up coming in a little bit heavier than what his ownership projection is, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be chalk or anything like that. Anything else you want to add, Eric, about the pitching options on FanDuel?
David Festa on FanDuel, because it's such a feast or famine type play. Like David Festa can get the leash just ripped out from under him, but if he has it moving, he's the kind of guy who wins you a tournament because of the strikeout upside. And Boston, despite the power that they have, I think he's a really, really interesting FanDuel play because if he gets the 6 innings, awesome. You're going to bypass everybody because that's just kind of how David Festa rolls. And if he doesn't, you're probably getting mowed down and you shouldn't have to worry about the night anyway.
Let's go ahead and build some lineups here. So it's kind of hard for me to do it in the same way Jordan does, where he is, looking for your guys' lineups and submitting them and whatnot, as Eric and I.
But he can't
talking.
spell. He can't figure out names and stuff. What position does he play? What position does Aaron Judge play? I don't know.
I had a joke about Jordan that was based on a viral tweet I saw earlier, but it was one of the ones that had to stay in my drafts. I was like, no, this can't be seen for the public. But if
send it to the group thread, please.
Yeah, but I hope Jordan is enjoying his nice day off on this Friday. But let's build a single entry lineup, Eric, and try to create it with some leverage. So curious to ask you, if you're building one lineup for a small field contest right now, which direction would you going in with your stack?
I would be going to probably.
Please answer
Oakland.
Yeah.
Oakland
all right. Let's build an Oakland stack. So we'll go small contest. We'll set it to 25% to first. So if we're going to be building an Oakland stack, fair to say that it's pretty easy to go Musgrove and Verlander as the pitchers?
That is correct.
All right.
Spanish Armada, 1542.
Exactly. Now, which hitters do we want to go to for Oakland?
Kind of depends. I mean, Brent Rooker, like click, 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 but obviously click, click, boom. He's also expensive. It's just that if the stack goes off, he probably comes along for the ride. I think Lawrence Butler probably comes along for the ride. Zach Geloff sitting in this batting 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Wilson gives you some he gives you some salary relief at shortstop, and shortstop traditionally outside of Gunnar, who is facing a lefty to start or later on in Holton more than likely, because I think doesn't Detroit have a different opener as well?
Detroit,
or is it Holton for sure?
I'm pretty sure that it's who's it? Herder starting.
Yeah, I have Holton listed here. Tyler Holton now. Lefty starting now.
Let's see.
Because Brant Herder is now coming in later.
Okay. But Holton's not going to pitch very long.
Yeah, he went 2 innings, 32 pitches last time out, and that was like 2 days ago, 3 days
Herder's
ago.
going to be the bulk pitcher.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, they're going to just have Gunnar face a lefty there right off the bat. But the whole point remains is that Bobby Witt Jr., Trey Turner, they kind of dominate the position. You get Ezekiel Tovar outside of Coors. You get Carlos Correa, who just got back here for the Twins and had a decent enough game against Cleveland 2 ago and has looked okay, but just kind of getting acclimated. The position for me is one that I'm okay punting to if you want to go 2,700 for Jacob Wilson, who I think will be an eventual decent enough hitter at the big league level.
All right, so we could plug Jacob Wilson in. Let's look at some of the rest of the options. I think it's kind of hard to build an A's stack and not have Shea Langoliers in it.
Agreed.
Soderstrom, somebody you've liked at points in times this year. He is batting 7th, though. Zach Geloff, he is going to be batting 6th, also as a reasonable price tag. I'm going to make the executive decision to put Geloff in the lineup. So we've got Langoliers, Geloff, and Jacob Wilson locked in so far, Eric. Who are some of the other hitters from the Oakland A's? We got 2 more that we got to plug into the lineup.
Oh, boy. I don't see how we don't play Butler and, because we're going Verlander, Musgrove. Yeah, let's go Butler. Let's go Rooker. Let's just eat the massive 2 big guys.
All right. So we've got Langoliers, Geloff, Wilson, Butler, Rooker. That is our 5-man Oakland A's stack. Now let's go and bring everybody else back into the fold here. Select everybody. And we've got first base, third base, and outfield left to fill. We've got $12,000 total dollars remaining, so $4,000 per player. Let's just see if we just sort by the value here, what is showing up as the best points per dollar options. So Gurriel at first, and he's the flat min nearly. At third base, Adam Frazier. But the Royals are just going to be so popular with these price points. $2,200 for Adam Frazier. You've got Yuli Gurriel is $2,100. And then, outfield as well, just to see sorting here by value, where you've got Adam Frazier as well with the third base and outfield eligibility. Let's see. Are there any Royals players that you want to plug in here for value? Like at this point, we're so contrarian with the Oakland A's. I'm not concerned about ownership anywhere else.
No, I'm not either.
All right. First base. Let's plug in.
Can we go to Manzardo?
Oh, you want to go Manzardo?
I do. Batting second. Super cheap. Why is he still so cheap?
Because he is. It's never changed. He's been that cheap since he got called up.
It's just absurd. And then I think third base just becomes J-Ram. I think it's pretty easy for me to look at that and do it. If we're not going to be playing Gibson in this lineup, I just like Manzardo and Ramirez.
Okay, so once we have Ramirez in, we've got $3,400 left for outfield. Let's see if there is a Guardians outfielder that's right around the 3,400. Yeah, we got Angel Martinez leading off at 3,200. So there we go. So we're able to build a 5-3 stack, 5-man stack of the A's, 3-man stack of the Guardians on the other side. And let's see if the single lineup sims are liking this pretty contrarian Oakland A's stack. By the way, if you look at the ownership overall, maybe a little bit too contrarian here, because if you look at the ownership of these individual hitters, we have the most popular hitter we rostered is Jose Ramirez at 6% ownership, Manzardo at 5%. So maybe it is hard to build some plus EV Oakland stacks. Let's see if instead of Cleveland, another part of this too is don't forget our data likes Kyle Gibson today. So Cleveland stacks on the other side are probably not going to come out all that well. Let's see if we try a 2-man Royal stack here instead. Okay. If we went Gurriel at first base.
Third base sucks for it, but you're probably playing Michael Garcia.
Let's see if we go to Garcia at 3,600. And then outfield might just have to plug in whoever projects the best at this point.
Going to be Mookie.
6,300. Yeah, it is.
I like Michael Harris too.
Yeah, Mookie easily. Let's see if this lineup ends up looking better.
What happened to Michael Harris since I've been in Scotland? He should send me royalties to move here because he's been a god.
And still no good. I don't think we're going to be able to build an Oakland lineup that our data is going to like.
Nope, that's not going to happen.
I like Oakland. Our data a little bit less so, though. But yeah, I mean, Chris Williams brought it up in chat. He said the A's are bringing down the ROI. Yeah, it is absolutely the A's. We're trying to force in a stack there, but sometimes the data is just going to tell us.
But here's the thing. Let's bring this up. So what is the data critiquing right now? We're looking at a small contest, less than 1,000 lineups, and you don't have to get that contrarian at times. Now, in some of the tournaments that Greg's playing in, that I'm playing in for some of the, like the $44, I guess that's not single entry, but like some of the bigger single entry stuff, like, up to the $100 just single entry that you're looking at. We're going to see such pronounced ownership on Musgrove Verlander where they're going to be even chalkier. And so it kind of, as a result, needs to have a stack that potentially nobody's going to go to. And if Cole is going to pull 35-40% ownership in those same contests, it's just going to look a little bit different than when we have them projected for 28 and 25. So based on the projection ownership dynamic, you kind of have to I think what I might do is I would probably go back into like the data hub or change some things up there so that the data is still the data. We're not going to change the player projection. It's not going to do a single thing to it, but maybe for the contest we're playing in, try to have the ownership magnified on some of the pitchers.
My dad will not stop texting and calling me about dinner. There's nothing more important to my dad than trying to figure out what he wants to do for dinner right now.
Scuba, we got like 5 minutes. Just chill.
I'll be done soon. All right, so we weren't able to successfully build an Oakland A's stack. Let's go back and look at our lineups and try to figure out who our data is liking for stacking purposes. So pulling the DraftKings lineups back up here and favoriting the top 150. Go to my exposures and see which teams I'm getting to the most of as a 5-man stack. And it is
same as me
by far the Atlanta Braves. And there's 2 popular teams on the slate, the Royals, the Braves. The one issue with the Kansas City Royals, who, by the way, I still have the Royals here as I've got 3 teams tied with the exact same amount of ownership I'm getting to. The only issue with the Royals, it's clearly not the price point. It's not the matchup, just the ownership. They're projected to be the most popular team on the slate by a mile. So I get a chunk of them, but it's about half as much as what the field has. The other popular team we have, though, is the Atlanta Braves, and I find them much harder to get away from, Eric.
As do I. They're my highest owned stack, and they're going to stay that way.
Yeah, so they have a matchup against Velante Belozo. And if you guys didn't know Belozo, what does that mean in Spanish, Eric?
Fucking sucks.
It means clown. That's not true, but it sounds like it could be accurate. Do you know what Belozo's average fastball velocity is this year?
It's like 89.
It is 89 miles per hour. He is incapable of generating swing and misses. So people are clearly not afraid of the fact that he's a 3.7 ERA. Here are the underlying numbers for this guy.
It's bad.
5.08 expected ERA, 5.59 FIP. And then if you look at every single projection source, which I always like to do on pitchers that we don't have too much information on. I mean, Zips has got this guy as his fair ERA, as his true talent level right now, 6.42. The bat has him at 5.33. This guy is no good, very bad, terrible. I know that Miami is a pitcher-friendly park. I don't think it should matter against Belozo, though.
It will not matter against Belozo. He's a bozo, and we're going to win a grand prize game with him. See what I did there, 90s kids? It was great.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2 popular teams on the entire slate. If I'm going to roster one of them, I like the Atlanta Braves more than the Kansas City Royals. There's definitely a lot of value to the Royals as a salary-saving team. Like if you have, let's say you're jamming the Dodgers. Somebody in chat asked about Dodgers ownership. They're projected to be 7% owned. So if you want to play a pretty expensive Dodger stack and you're trying to figure out where you save salary, you plug in some of those Royals hitters like Adam Frazier, for instance, and it makes the lineup come together and makes it possible there. What is the team that you're prioritizing the most in large field GPPs? Is it also the Braves or is there another team?
It's the Braves. I don't have anything interesting to add there. It's definitely going to be the Braves. It's going to remain the Braves. I do think the Dodgers are more interesting now that they did roll out an A-team lineup. So I'm going to have to rerun some stuff there. They're really low owned. I think there were some assumptions that we might see something watered down. Obviously, they didn't clinch a division. They didn't clinch it. They clinched a postseason berth, and Shohei Ohtani put up 594,632 fantasy points yesterday and set history. I will say, I still think there's like a 5% chance he has one at bat. Again, this is like a minus 2,000 line that I'm throwing down. So, whatever. But I think there's like a legit 5% chance he gets pulled after one at bat. He comes out for like a curtain call. Dodger Stadium goes nuts for him. He swings for the fences and then leaves. But it's not going to keep me out of it, like me stacking him up or putting him into those lineups. And yeah, this is a really good overall Dodgers lineup, top to bottom.
Yeah. Yep. Dodgers, I've got them in like close to what the field has. 5% as a 5-man stack, 3% here as a 4-man stack, 3% as a 3-man stack. If you're looking to pay up, Dodgers make sense. I do have a little bit of concern. Like, I don't think it's the most likely scenario, Eric, but like you said, is there a chance that Ohtani just gets 1 or 2 plate appearances and comes out? Yeah, it's on the table. It's a possibility. First player ever to have a 50-50 season yesterday. So who knows? Maybe that is an angle that they end up going with. And by the way, the food order submitted. I'm getting chicken and broccoli from the Chinese food place.
What a time to be alive.
We are squared away, myself and Scuba here.
Do you feel better now?
Yeah, because I'm going to be able to eat as soon as we're done now. It's going to be awesome. Good. The Chinese food place is right down the street from my house. It'll be good.
I didn't have Chinese. I had Mexican when we went there. It was also pretty good.
Yeah, lots of good places to eat here. Jorge Jacomi says, favorite low-owned stack and pitcher and thoughts on the Dodgers. Favorite low-owned stack for me is the St. Louis Cardinals going up against Ben Lively. Lively is a pretty middle-of-the-road, mediocre starting pitcher, but his numbers have dipped since the All-Star break in multiple ways. So his FIP in the second half of the year, 4.95. XFIP is also 4.96. Here's where I think Ben Lively might be gettable, Eric. Have you seen what his strikeout rate is since the All-Star game?
No.
14.5%. It's very low. He is allowing the ball to be put in play against him infrequently. That in itself, I think, gives St. Louis a little bit of kind of sneaky upside to this game. Another thing, too, with the Guardians clinching a playoff spot yesterday, I don't know that they're going to be wanting to go to their highest of high leverage relievers in this game. So I think that Ben Lively is somebody who could definitely be targeting against. He's regressed in the second half of the season. St. Louis is also super cheap and pulling almost no ownership. We've got St. Louis projected for 4% ownership, one of the top overall value stacks on the slate. So I like St. Louis if I'm being contrarian at pitcher as well. If I'm looking at a contrarian pitcher, talked about him before, but Kyle Gibson at only 5% ownership. So Cardinals there. Cardinals pitcher, Kyle Gibson is my favorite low-owned pitcher, also my favorite low-owned stack. For yourself, Eric, what is your favorite low-owned stack today?
The Los Angeles Angels. It's Justin Verlander. He's very, very popular. We talked about going up against Garrett Cole as well. I don't think the Angels are any good. I do not think that they are very talented in any way, shape, or form, but they continue to have some guys that are at least intriguing. Eric Wegeman, 486 expected slugging. Nico Cavadas, he hits it very, very high. Justin Verlander, high ball pitcher. Cavadas has had some crazy power in AAA. Ward, O'Hop, all these guys across the board. I think that getting to the Angels just gives you a ton of leverage. It's a leverage play partially, but also Ward, Neto, Cavadas, Tice being the guy that's in there instead of O'Hop today with 3K. Wegeman, I think the top of that lineup is something that's at least pretty intriguing to me in a ballpark that's played up for power all year.
And then the final part of his question is our thoughts on the Dodgers. I mean, I'm about even with the field on the Dodgers. They're 7% owned. That's right around where I am. I don't have like any real stand here. Do you, Eric?
No, I do think that what happens is I'm looking at like David Festa, Kyle Gibson lineups in order to get to Ohtani bets. I mean, they are expensive guys, and there's no 5,500 punt on this slate. And I think as a result, that's why we're seeing the Dodger ownership so low. Inherently, that makes you say, I want to get to them. But how do you get to them other than like giving up tons of projection at pitcher? I don't really know.
I want to tell you guys something about a new promotion we have going on here at Stochastic. If you sign up at Bet365, and you guys know the Bet365 offer, you make a $10 deposit, you place a $5 bet, they give you $200 in bet credits there, which that in itself is a great deal. But now something added on top of it, not only if you sign up at Bet365 with our link, do you get all those bonus action? In addition to that, now you also get a free month access to anybody on our marketplace of your choosing. So Tails, that's the marketplace of Odd Shopper. We got people like Eric who have a betting Discord you could sign up for. You get 1 free month of anybody on our marketplace is choosing of yours when you sign up for one of our sportsbook links. So if you want to sign up for Eric's Discord, sign up at Bet365, get yourself a bunch of bonus money. And then in addition to that, Eric's been giving out some bets so you could parlay and make that money into a real killing there. So check that out. Sign up using the link that we have down below. Any other stacks that are important to you, Eric? I'm pretty flat at offense, as you guys could see here on screen. So if you don't have anything else to add, we'll look at FanDuel stacks real quick, and then we will do our home run picks.
Yeah, let's go to FanDuel.
Yeah, so over on FanDuel, nothing's really all that much different for me. I also like the Braves as my top overall stack. They're 13% owned on FanDuel. The chalk is a little bit different on FanDuel. The Dodgers are really popular. They're 12% owned. The Astros are really popular. They're 11.5% owned. The Royals coming in at sub 10% ownership because you're not getting the same like crazy discount. But same for me on FanDuel. If I'm building one lineup, the Braves are the team I want to be getting to.
Braves are the team I'd want to be getting to, not even close. Yeah.
Anything else that's different to you about FanDuel relative to DK?
Yeah, I think it's easier to get to the Dodgers. So we just talked about DK, and I'm looking at some of my stacks across the two sites. I can't play FanDuel in Scotland, but I'm able to build lineups in the Sims and take a look at them. And I very much like the idea of being higher on them on FanDuel. We're seeing that ownership come up on them, but like, I do think there's something when you're playing multiple sites to just getting exposure where the pricing across both sites is just drastically different. And what changes is that one FanDuel, the floor is a little bit lower than trying to get to like a 7,100 bets and things there. But the other part is you can only play 4 batters of any team on FanDuel. So getting to the Dodgers, much more appealing for me there. We're seeing their top stack percentage second on the board there. No positive leverage to be had, but yeah, you want to play the Dodgers. You want to get to the big poppers there. Far more appealing on FanDuel.
Yeah, and then Einstein asked if we have any interest in the Diamondbacks. The matchup against Colin Ray is whatever. It's very middle of the road, but the Diamondbacks are really expensive for a mediocre matchup. So, I mean, I would rather just pay up for like the Dodgers or the Yankees instead of going to Arizona.
As would I.
All right. If you don't have any other thoughts, looks like there's no other questions here. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up for any of the tools here on the site, once again, links are down below in the YouTube description box. But Eric, who's going yard today? Who's your pick?
I've got so many homers, and I'm going to post a couple of them here in like 15 minutes in the Discord. Most of them do come from... What?
I know you're going to take my guy.
No, I'm not. Brent Rooker.
You said his name earlier, so I think you're going to.
Brent Rooker?
Oh, no. No, I'm going Michael Harris.
Oh, Michael Harris is a god, but so is Brent Rooker. They are two gods walking amongst men as, you know, as gods amongst mortals. But Brent Rooker is just having an unbelievable season yet again. 596 expected slugging, 18.7 degree launch angle, and the leverage you get going up against one Garrett Cole with some of his portfolio this season. It's too much to pass up. Love myself some Brent Rooker.
Yep, Michael Harris for myself. You know, it's... This matchup the Atlanta Braves have against Belozo, it is in Miami. It is a pitcher-friendly ballpark. I don't think it should matter going up against the guy who is throwing the ball in the mid-80s and is not capable of getting any kind of swing and misses is Belozo. And then also on top of that, if you look at the minor league numbers for him this year, he had a 16.7% home run to fly ball rate. That's something that was always plaguing him in the minor leagues. Like, this guy is going to get served sooner rather than later. Well, it has to be sooner rather than later, because if not, the season's over. He's probably only making one more start after this. So this one and or the next one, I think, goes very poorly for Belozo. I love the Braves today. I'm picking Michael Harris to homer. Let's see what we have from chat. We have, all right, we've got Lawrence Butler from Charles Moran. Malukar is picking Jose Altuve and Giancarlo Stanton. All right, going with the shortest and biggest player on the entire slate. We've got Olsen and Betts from BX44. Josh Naylor from Alex Diaz. We've got Butler as well for... Oh, no, I read that one off. Oh, never mind. The next pick is also Lawrence Butler from Ken Ratty. Everybody's just loading up on Butler here. We've got Loyal Rican 316 is going with Kyle Isbell to homer. And then he's also going with Bobby Witt Jr. And then we've got Marquee Music Group is going with Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper from Reg Kell, Bobby Witt from Io Kimbrough, Nick Castellanos from Anthony Hunt, Billy Cook from Elway's Army, Kyle Tucker from Sotex, Juan Soto from Poor Zingis. And yeah, that is going to do it for us unless, oh, there we go. Chris Williams also added in Andy Pajes, and I'm a loser till I win the Millie, went with Jason Dominguez. So guys, if you have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks for watching the show today. And on Sunday, we've got the big NFL Live Before Lock. So it's going to be Josh building pick'em cards. I'm going to build lineups in the single lineups in for football. Then we've got Ben Raza and Lofty going game by game, giving you all the injury updates, matchups, and all that. And then Eric Lindquist and Matt Kajeski bringing it home in the final block, leading us up to lock. So see you guys on Sunday. Have a great weekend. Have a great night. And peace out.